Hello, I'm the animator's friend, India Lombardi-Bello. Thanks for coming to my show. Just for those who are new to the show or you need a little refresher on the format, I have a casual conversation with an animator using a questionnaire that's 24 questions representative of the 24 frames of animation to give a platform for animators to be seen as cool and interesting people that should be admired and appreciated for the incredible artists and just human beings that they are. Today, I'm talking with John Morena. John Morena is an animator from the Bronx, now living in Brooklyn, and he has had several films selected into many prestigious festivals, including Annecy, Ottawa, Hiroshima, Anima Mundi, Anima Fest Zagreb, and the International Children's Festival. And this is the first person that I've interviewed on the show so far that is not somebody that I knew previously. Like I was familiar with him and his work, but he wasn't my friend until now. It was exciting to talk to somebody new and, do this questionnaire with somebody who doesn't already know me and know my angle. For some context, just want to mention that we recorded this episode the day after the US presidential inauguration and also in the recent wake of the TikTok ban going into effect, but then immediately being lifted. So that definitely colors a bit of our conversation. And yeah, I feel like more so than maybe some of my other chats, we got into some big topics, maybe difficult topics. I don't know, but I think that he's a big thinker, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I think you will as well. Well, let's take a listen to my conversation with my new friend, John Morena. Wondering first if you could just talk a little bit about the project that you're working on, Films for No One.
Films for No One is an animated feature-length anthology. It's a group of short films strung together into one longer feature-length film. Mm-hmm. Fantasia, sort of like the structure comparison that I can make. I've been comparing it a little bit more to albums. Like an album of songs. It's an album of films. It's going to be about 9 short films in there, but some of them are more like bridge films or transitional films. So I would say if I was to break them out and make singles out of them, they might be out of the 9, there'd be 5 that could live on their own as self-contained shorts.
Do you feel like when you're working in that way, is it a type of a constraint for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's limitations. I like to create as many limitations as I possibly can.
Gotcha. Cool. I've been doing with my friend Alex Rohr. We just committed to doing, because we're both kind of post grad school, semi recently. And it's I don't know, I feel you do a thesis and then it's hard to for me at least, to bounce back. So then we've been doing a drawing a day, at least for 15 minutes. But then he was it has to be grayscale. And I was okay, no problem. And then I'm oh my God.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's no problem until you have to do it.
Yeah.
No, it's good to revisit your practice every day.
Yeah.
So that's good for, even if it's just for 15 minutes. And then, once you start to do ones that you really don't like, and you'll, I think, through making bad stuff, you'll learn how to make good stuff. Yeah. If that's, that sounds really rudimentary, but but it is true. You have to sort of get the bad out first.
It's true.
And you can only do it by doing it all the time.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, sometimes I think I'm maybe I'm too, I'm always don't force it. If you don't want to make something, don't force it. But maybe I'm too gentle. I need to just be more, have more of a practice, Yeah. I did read the interview that you did with Asifa. I thought it was a fun interview, and you guys were talking a lot about where independent animation fits within the broader spectrum of animation. I guess I was curious to get your opinion about, feeling independent animation isn't getting the recognition and the larger system of animation being viewed as like children's media, and it's being, you know, pumped out by like these multimedia conglomerates. So like with that, you know, knowledge in mind, with the Golden Globes win of Flow, was that, I don't know, did you have any like kind of like hope after seeing that?
Absolutely. I know Gintz, actually.
Okay, amazing.
We met at Zagreb. Very quiet guy. Very reserved, but he's obviously got a well of like deepness in there somewhere. So his first film, when I was at Zagreb with some Area 52 films, he was there with his first film, Away. And though I haven't seen Flow yet, I mean, how could you not be happy for something like that? You know, the whole problem is that like the mainstream audiences are not ever exposed to films like Flow. They're not ever exposed to films that have no dialogue, that don't have A-list celebrities doing voices, and that they'll then be toys later, you know. So yeah, for a film like Flow to come this far, I mean, like what's transpired with that film has just been incredible. But I'm glad that it's getting its due, and that you know, I don't know if it's gonna single-handedly like turn the tides, but I think that it's one nice, really big step. I mean, how much more could he do? You know, I mean, aside from, you know, winning an Oscar or something like that, which, you know, he seems like it's on the path to at least getting nominated for something. But yeah, I think that more we need more of that, more of that sort of stuff. Support indie animation. That's what we have to do. We have to root for films like that. You know, I think from a mainstream point of view, or from a general viewing audience point of view, there is very little information as to what animation even is.
Totally. And
it ends up just being way lopsided, way unfair, way based on commodity, which is not why we make these things. You know, you make personal films because you've got something to say. You don't make a film like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse because you've got something to say. You know, that stuff comes later on. I was probably around 12 or 13 when I saw a Bill Plimpton film, and thank God for MTV, or we never would have seen it. Would we have? I mean,
how else would you have?
Well, yeah, there was no other. You would have had to have gone to a film festival,
right?
And that's sort of the same thing now. There are no cinema delivery systems like MTV anymore that'll give a Bill Plimpton a platform, that'll give an Aeon Flux a platform, Beavis and Butthead, stuff like that. I mean, to see a film like, I think it was 25 Ways to Quit Smoking, and then Your Face was on MTV, and it would be on a semi-regular rotation on that. So you knew who Bill Plimpton was. Similar to the way you would know who David Lynch was, or Martin Scorsese, or something like that. You know what I mean? Where there's like a name attached to it, and there's an artist with a style instead of a company with a style, which is essentially like the equivalent to a brand personality, really, you know, more than a personal style. You know, Pixar films look like Pixar films. Disney films look like Disney films. They don't necessarily look like a Brad Bird film or look like a Pete Docter film or something. I would love to see what they would do if they had no money. You know? I mean, not to say that they would be bad or something. I'm sure that they would be amazing, but like, what would they do if they had to, you know, spend 7 days a week in there? You know, what do their shorts look like that are not Pixar shorts? You know, I think that the general public needs to be told explicitly that these are cool, meaning short animations. Not only are they cool, but you're not going to be cool if you don't engage with them. You know what I mean? It sort of has to be that kind of a thing. It's got to be like a fidget spinners or like Chia Pets or something. You have to treat it in the same sort of a way where it's got to be, you know, marketed as a trend. I don't know where that was going.
I like where it ended up.
Okay.
Number 1, where are you in the birth order?
I'm second in the birth order. Last.
Okay. last. So there's
out
two.
Of two.
You're two out of two.
Yeah. I'm 2 out of 2. Yep.
Do you feel like being the younger sibling had, I don't know, like, do you think you would have been a different person if you were like the older sibling, or if you were?
I'm sure I would have. Yeah, I'm sure I would have. I think though that I may have pursued art differently assuming that I would have went after that as the older person. I guess it also depends on when you're born. Like if I was born when my brother was born, which is 10 years older than me, which would have been the late 60s, I don't know what sort of like external influences would have guided me towards some sort of other career or something like that. I mean, I feel like to be an artist, there's a call, there's a calling, and you sort of answer that call, and you sort of kind of have to do it, even if you do it like outside of your regular job. I would have certainly been influenced in a different way by the world in the 70s as opposed to the world in the 80s. And just for familial dynamics too, I think I probably would have been guided a little bit more towards a union job, would have been less exposed to, probably even less than I even was exposed to the fact that someone could even be an artist for a living and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I'm glad I was born when I was born.
Yeah, it was an easier path towards.
I guess so, yeah.
And sorry, you had said earlier too that you didn't start out in animation yourself, right? Also,
when I started going to school, I went to school for illustration first, and I had an epiphany that I wanted to make films, but I still wanted to draw. So similar to you, animation just made logical sense. It sort of happened almost by accident in that fashion.
That's a good pipeline, I feel like, illustration to animation.
I think most people start out like that. They just know that they like to draw. It's not like my parents were animators or something, or would have known to, like at least your parents had the wherewithal to be like, hey, why don't you try that,
Yeah.
So.
What did your parents do?
My father worked for the phone company back when there was a phone company. Worked for New York Telephone before it became Verizon. And my mother was a housewife until she, in the 80s, started working at a hospital as a secretary. And now she's since become, like, in her department, like the highest ranking administrator that's not a doctor in her department. And she's got a master's and everything. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Number 2, what's your sign?
Sagittarius.
Are you into astrology?
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, like how do you feel like a Sagittarian?
Unsettled. Always in flux. Even though on the outside you kind of appear, at least for me, I sort of appear reliable, or when you've focused, stuff like that. But on the inside, I'm not like that. I'm always in a state of like, all right, I'm bored of that. Let me go on to the next, thing, or whatever the new thing is, or let's just jump off this bridge and see what happens now. There's sort of a wild at heart sort of a nature to it. So I'd say that's probably the bane of being a Sagittarius in that way.
Yeah. And Sagittarius is like the horse.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
The centaur.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay.
half man, half horse with bow and arrow.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, no, I believe in all that stuff too. I think that it has it doesn't totally control us like puppets or something, but it's got influence on you.
And I always say to doubters that it's like, if the moon can create waves in the ocean, how do you think it's affecting us little like stupid people?
No, I feel like everything is like that too. Like when people make fun of me because I prepare for Mercury retrograde.
You have to. Yeah.
You're a fool not to, I think.
Yeah.
But no, I'm very aware of it, and like I could sense it when it's coming, and I am a little more deliberate during those times. I find that for some reason, like with me, like if I pick up something like Mercury or the Vibes or whatever, will like smack it out of my hand, and like I'm constantly dropping things and fumbling with stuff during those times. You could feel the disturbance in the force too.
Yeah. I find that like some I get through with ease, and then I'll like I feel like I have like one a year that's like a disaster. A total wreck the entire time. Yep. And it's like, it almost feels like no matter what I do, like I can't like prevent it from not being a disaster.
I feel like everyone probably going through that, feeling the same thing. Yeah. It's important during those times to not resist. I think that's a good like mantra for art. For making art too, is to not resist and just to sort of go, really just like dive into it and let it carry you and resign to other forces that are sort of taking you in a direction. I think when you try to take too much control and you're too rigid, you're doing the work a great disservice. So I think in that way, Mercury teaches us, to be a little more humble and to follow a little more, and so I guess it's like Bruce Lee says, like, be like water. If things are going to be fumbly and things are going to be smacked out of my hand, then that's what it is. I'm not going to like try to fight it as much as possible, because you're going to lose. Yeah.
Do you like Taoism at all?
What was Taoism again?
It's like, it's an Eastern philosophy. I feel like it distinguishes itself differently from like Confucianism and Buddhism, in that I feel like it's more focused on like, this is what life actually is like. Like Buddhism is like, life is suffering, so you need to like kind of shed everything about the material world in order to feel settled and good and enlightened. Confucianism is more like Christianity, in that it's like you have to do all these things while you're here and earth is bad so that you can get to a better place. Whereas Taoism is like, this is where you are right now. And like, how can you enjoy it for what it is? And one of the words that's like used a lot is like this idea of like yielding, which I really like. And that makes me think of like what you're talking about with like Mercury in retrograde, but also like art of just like yielding to the things that are happening, and just kind of like, taking a pause and
readjusting and reacclimating, accommodating those forces, to not, sort of letting them feel like they're allowed to infiltrate whatever it is going on in your life. I think once you just open to making it a companion in a you can't beat him, join him sort of way, I think things will work out better for you like that, but as it pertains to art, and especially film, so many times in the edit room, I've seen filmmakers who are so stuck to their original idea or to their script that they wrote, 12 years ago, and now the film has been made, and now they're sitting in the edit room and not allowing for something new to come into the fray, just because they had written it a certain way. And those films always, it's 100%. They always fall short for that reason. So I think that something like that, of like that thing of yielding, resigning, knowing that you are not really in control, whether you're the director or the producer or the person with the money or whatever it is. The universe has other ideas in mind for your work, and it needs to be included because it gave you the idea in the first place.
Yeah, agreed. Number 3, what's your morning routine?
I get up and after I like wash my face and stuff like that, while I'm making coffee, I'll finish a task that could be finished within a 10-minute period, unloading the sink and putting the dishes in the dishwasher or something, or make the bed, things like that. I feel like if you start the day with something that you can start and finish and complete, there's a sense of accomplishment already in the beginning of the day. So I like to do that in the beginning.
Yeah. That's great. My mom is like very much on like self-help Instagram, and she sends me things constantly. And she sent me this, and I don't know why it like resonated with me, because I don't feel like I have like a phone problem per se, but like it was talking about how if you look at your phone first thing in the morning and you're like going through your notifications, you're scrolling, whatever, you're using up like so much dopamine like first thing in the morning, and then like kind of the rest of the day like can't kind of catch up to like that big burst that you experienced first thing in the morning. So I already wait like an hour to have coffee for that reason, because it's like your cortisol levels are the highest in the morning. So if you wait and have your coffee, then it's like it's a better experience.
Yeah, I've heard that too, like to drink water instead of drinking coffee.
Yeah. So then this thing was saying like wait an hour to have your phone on and like to be actually like receiving notifications, and use that time instead to do the stuff that like you put off doing, like taking out the garbage and stuff like that. So I've been doing that, and it's like I said, I don't feel like I would get that jolt per se from the phone, but I do like just being like, instead of doing that, I'm going to focus on like, my apartment, and like taking care of my space, No,
I agree in that way. I think though, like I like to wake up and then be in bed for 30 minutes or an hour, you know, and just be sort of up but in bed.
Yeah.
So the phone is a good way to kill that time.
Totally.
But when I look back at like all the good times I've ever had with my phone, like, there are no good times that I've ever had with my phone in that way. Like I can't think of like a great morning I had that one time that I spent the hour with. It's just filler.
Totally.
Just like you said, it's not good food for your brain, especially first thing in the morning. You have to sort of treat it in that way. It's sort of like food. It's like junk. It's just junk. It's like eating Snickers and stuff in the morning. So totally
agree.
And there's so much stuff that you could be filled with, and like, of course, because of the way algorithms are designed, they're meant to keep you around because it feels so personalized.
Yeah. I feel like though these last 2 weeks with like all of the stuff that's going on with social media and its ties with the government and people being very kind of like, I feel like maybe it's the beginning of the end of social media. This is my hot take.
The beginning of the end of social media. Man. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I think that maybe the people would like something like that, or at least some sort of a break. But I mean, just the corporate monsters are never going to let that happen. So whatever.
Yeah. 4, have you listened to music today?
Oh yeah.
What'd you listen to?
On the way here, I was listening to an album that I found last year by a group called The Mountain Movers. Oh. And it's sort of like 75% instrumental stuff. So I was listening to that today. And then earlier on, I was listening to Mannequin Pussy. I don't know if you know Mannequin Pussy.
I know that people like them, and I know that they're probably really cool, but like they're not
awesome.
Quite crossed my path in a meaningful way.
They're great. Yeah. Yeah. I think if you like, I mean, I hesitate to call it punk rock, but there is like a punk rock element to it too. It's sort of like hard rock music, indie hard rock, but great songs. Yeah. And I forget the name of the front woman, but she's amazing too.
This is more of a selfish, tangential question, but you like the Beatles? I just watched the Get Back documentary. Have you seen it? Yep. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it
so
too.
much. I was like every second of it was like, oh my God. I don't know. It was just, one's just like the footage was just like really beautiful.
Whatever the technology they used to fix everything was really great, but also just sort of that you are there feeling, and you feel like you're there with them. Yes. And watching them make it up
Yes.
as they go along.
And that there's so many times when it's just like, oh God, like they're like, it sucks. There's like moments when you're like, wow, this song like sucks. And then it's like, they figure it out.
Yeah. To watch those ideas develop. Because Don't Let Me Down is probably one of my favorite Beatles songs out of all Beatles songs. Yeah. And to listen to it in its raw, ugly form first, and them not know the harmonies really, because you know the song so, like especially like with Beatles songs, there are just some songs where you just know, even if you don't like the Beatles, or you don't really know too much about the Beatles, there's some songs where you just know. And for me, because I love that song so much, knowing it and then hearing the early versions of it, and it's sort of just not right. They don't know the lyrics are not there yet.
Yeah.
But then to when they finally go to the rooftop and like do those two amazing versions of it, and then one of them is like the version. It's just a testament to how professional they were, how great of a team they were, all four of them, because those contributions from all of them really make all of those songs.
Yes. And I think also so fun watching their dynamic as a group during what was,
one of their worst times.
Yeah. To tie it back to astrology, like I looked up all their signs,
to
watch it, like knowing that information. I was like, oh yeah, they're all fitting in. I feel like to their roles.
Well, Paul is a Gemini.
He's a Gemini.
And John is a Libra. October 9th.
Right? Libra is the scales.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's October 9th, and then. George is a Pisces, right?
I love that you know. Yes.
Ringo, I don't know what month he was born.
He's a Cancer.
Oh, a Cancer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I feel like Paul won't shut up. Like he's just yakking away the whole time, telling everybody what to do, but like thinking, like acting like he's not the boss all the time, which was like so, but like at some point he was like, John, you're always the boss. And then, I felt like John was very, I don't know the word. There is something very like fair and like reasonable about him. And it's funny because like I feel like the relationship with him and Paul is always made out to be like very inflammatory. But it's like, I don't see that. And I feel like if anything, like John's very like generous with Paul,
Yeah. I think that's how that was all painted later on, where they were going after each other in the press. And then because Paul sued them, he had to, in order to dissolve the group, he became sort of the bad guy. But, when you watch them together, and even though they had their problems, and even just during that month, like, could you imagine that pressure?
I know.
Being like, all right, because they had just come off of the White Album, right? Which came out just a few months before that. And it was probably like 6 weeks before that it was released. And they were like, all right, now what we're going to do is give ourselves 1 month.
Yeah.
We don't know what the songs are. And then we're going to perform them live.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Number 5, as you're a native New Yorker, correct? So what's your favorite kind of pizza, would you say?
Lately I've been gravitating towards Sicilians.
Interesting.
I've always been a mix it up with a Sicilian every now and again.
I feel like they're an underdog of the pizza
underdog.
landscape.
They are an underdog just because they don't have their own emoji or something. Like, no, I like myself like a regular, plain, good slice of pizza.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's good.
Yeah.
I don't usually get toppings for myself on purpose. If someone put it in front of me, of course I'd have it. Occasionally I'll get something like a chicken cutlet on top or something, but mainly just like a good slice.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a place, I think it might be Brighton Beach, called DeFara.
Yeah.
They're great.
Were you ever there when the old guy, he's dead now, but the guy who he would just like grab it out of the oven with his bare hands.
No, in that place, really?
Yes. Yeah, there's a bunch of videos you can find of him online. He just like he's just been doing it for so long. I don't know. His hands just must be like he would grab the pan with his bare hands out the oven.
That's insane. No.
Yes.
Masochistic pizzeria guy. Well, what about you? What kind of pizza do you like?
I'm of the same school. I like a regular cheese slice. I like it to be well done. You
ask specifically for it to be well done.
I don't usually ask. I think what it is that, and this might be controversial with you, my lineage is from Jersey. So I spend a lot of time in Jersey. And I am used to what pizza is like there and just assumed that like that's what it's like in New York too. But I find it to be very different actually in the city versus in New Jersey. And I'm more of a Jersey gal when it comes to the pizza.
Do you feel like it's more like Philly sort of style? Or do you feel like it's just got its own flair?
I guess I don't know I can't like recall what like a Philly style would be.
Yeah, I don't know what Philly style would be either, but like I don't know. I feel like there's much more affiliation between New Jersey and Philadelphia than New Jersey and New York City.
Yeah. So I feel like Jersey pizza, it is like you get it and it is just more well done. Like you don't have to say anything. Oh, okay. And I feel like it's less doughy.
A little thinner.
It's thinner. It's crunchier.
It's not as soft.
Yeah.
I think that's a pizzeria to pizzeria thing.
Yeah, totally.
Some of them make they take it out a little sooner just so that when they have to reheat it, they're not burning it or something or overcooking it. Yeah. You should do a pizza podcast too.
Oh, that would be great.
Pizza and Beatles podcast.
Yes. So yeah, that's what I like. And yeah, I don't typically like toppings on it. And then like, I also love wood-fired pizza, but I feel like they're a totally different thing. Like it's like if the day that I crave one, I'm not craving the other.
Yeah. You know, those I like in like a personal pizza way.
Yeah, totally.
Like small one, all to myself, no sharing. Yeah.
I like to like if I go to a place like we all get like a bunch and then like everybody.
Yeah,
eats.
that's cool.
Number 6. What is the first work of art of any kind? It doesn't have to be animation oriented that made a meaningful impact on you as a child?
That's a good one. It would have to be music. I would say it would have to be some sort of an album that I would listen to from top to bottom. Probably either Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, or like, I mean, I don't want to cite that as like my like launch pad into my art life or anything, but that, I think around that time was the first time that I started like observing and recognizing that something was great. And then probably not too long after was like probably The Godfather or something. Yeah, I'd say if it was films, it was probably that one.
Do you think that Guns N' Roses was like your first album?
No, it wasn't, but it got me to want to play music.
Gotcha. It was like
I wanted to be Slash.
Yeah.
So that's how I picked up guitar to play. Yeah. It was the first album I bought.
Okay.
Yeah. And I went and I got that, and I got Big Daddy Kane. It's a Big Daddy thing on cassette. That's also a great album from top to bottom. Big Daddy Kane is like an old school rapper guy. He's like, if you ask anyone who likes rap music, like name like top 5 best MCs ever, Big Daddy Kane will probably be in that. But you know, again, that's not the greatest album I've ever heard, but I can remember listening to it and being like, man, that's really great. And like, what a thoughtful, clever guy he is, you know? I was probably like 8 or something, or 9, and like that's another guy I wanted to be Big Daddy Kane for, you know.
Yeah. Number 7, what were you like in high school?
An athlete, a jokester, mainly an athlete. I was interested in playing football and stuff, and I didn't play basketball in high school, but I liked to play basketball. And an artist, but sports was first. Again, I didn't grow up around the type of neighborhood I grew up in, was a little anemic in the artist's representation. So I didn't really see too much of it. So it was just a thing that I felt like I was good at, but I didn't really think much of it beyond that. But I was very sports oriented.
Okay. So you played football?
I played football in high school.
In high school. What was your position?
I played wide receiver.
Okay.
And defensive back.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to college, I played wide receiver for about 1.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I had to make a choice.
Between art and football?
Well, between my studies and that.
Gotcha.
When you're an athlete in college,
mm-hmm.
you're dedicated to that. You're always with the team. And
mm-hmm.
I felt like I was always with the team.
Yeah.
Not that I hated that or anything, but it just got to a point where, like, I wasn't on scholarship or anything for that. And, other kids that were on scholarship, like, they're just going to be put right in front of you. Like, you really got to work hard, like, to contribute to a team like that. And I think I was sort of tired of doing, like, the football practice and all that thing. But, I just came to the realization I was not gonna, go to the NFL or anything like that. Sure. So I had to stop.
Mm-hmm. Who are your teams?
So in football, in professional football, I'm a divorced Jets fan. Recently divorced. So I'm still working through.
Yes.
Still working through my divorce with them.
Yes.
Basketball, the Knicks, Mets, and baseball.
Okay. So you're still, like, moving on from the Jets. Like, you haven't started, like, experiencing other teams yet.
And I decided that really it's truly a waste of time and
mm-hmm.
futile to root for this team.
Yeah.
And you can't just jump to the other team.
Right.
If the Mets ever left town, I don't know if I could be a Yankee fan.
I gotcha.
Okay.
When
you're a Met fan from the Bronx, you can't be a Yankee fan, ever.
Yes,
so.
I understand that. Yeah. Number 8. And I don't know if there's an answer to this question. I just threw it on here.
Okay.
What celebrity could you be mistaken for?
Mistaken for? I don't know. I don't really see myself in any celebrities, really.
Yeah.
I remember one time when I was young, I guess because my hair must have been, like, really dry that day or something, and when somebody in my building was like, "Oh, you look like Dan Quayle." I don't remember Dan Quayle. Dan Quayle was George Bush Sr.'s vice president. And I thought to myself, like, how did he pick that one for me? Yeah, no, I don't know if I could be. But I used to shave my head, so I think back then, like, I can sort of look like Vin Diesel, like if he didn't have muscles or something.
Okay, 9. What's your latest fixation?
Stretching. I stretch every day. Animators, stretch and be strong. Get out of the chair. Learn about things like, I mean, this is going to sound ridiculous, but, like, learn about things like anterior pelvic tilt, which can happen if you sit too much, which then is going to compress your lower back, and it's going to overstretch your hamstrings, which then pulls on the rest of your calves and stuff. And, like, it's one thing when you're, like, 22, but when you're 42, 52, that stuff is hard to untangle later on. And when you're so focused on your work and you're not really thinking about how you're sitting and stuff, or how you're, stacking your bones and everything. But, like, I'm very mindful of it now because I do not want to get back where I was. I don't want to be, like, getting out of the chair and having to, like, pry myself open and then, starting to be dealing with, like, popping and cracking everywhere. And then I, got to use the gun, and, I don't want to, just don't want to be doing I just don't want to be doing all that. You got to get up every now and again. You got to take care of your body, and because animation will eat you alive if you don't do that.
Do you have, like, a particular mode that you're following, or is it, like, your own thing that you came up with?
I mean, I hesitate to call it yoga because I think people who do yoga would be like, that ain't yoga. You know, I would say it's my version of yoga. For me, I'm more focused on like fixing my leg.
Right.
So, which it's come a long way in the last 2 years. I would like to maybe learn yoga, but I feel like that's another like sort of commitment. And there's another, you know, thing to yoga. There's a spiritual mindfulness to it where I like to be mindful while I'm stretching, but at the same time, I'm also just doing it mainly for physical stuff. I am reading on my phone while I'm stretching and doing stuff, or I'll like be watching some YouTube videos about like narcissism or stuff like that, and learning about that. That's another thing I guess I was fixated about, was like learning about personality disorders, cluster B personality disorders. So. Stretching and narcissism.
Narcissism, amazing. Love that combination. Number 10, what's something you believe to be overrated?
Oh man, there's a lot of stuff coming to me now. Champagne. I feel like champagne is overrated.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. I like to drink it when the occasion calls for it. But I feel like that's overrated.
11, what's something you believe to be underrated?
Sleep. People don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
Out there. I also think something that's underrated would be like not watching television, not engaging so much with sitting down and looking at a screen. I mean, we're talking, you know, we like work in a field where like that's what you do, but like, yeah, I would say it's underrated to get out and talk to people. I feel like there's less of that going on out there. I mean, even for myself, like, just like, so isolated with that stuff. So
I do feel like, though, and this is part of, I think, why I think that we're reaching the end of social media. I feel like the pandemic was so like a concentration of like all the things that are like addictive about screen-based media. And so we got like an overdose of it. And that's all you had anyway. So then, because that was like a, you know, worldwide traumatic experience, and the in-person, you know, human thing was taken away for so long, that I feel like people crave it so much more now and like seek it out so much more now. I feel optimistic that there will be less.
That there would be less social media. Yeah. I don't know. I wish I was that optimistic about it. I think that unfortunately it's too tied into like youth culture. And I think that it's too tied into buying products, shopping. Things are just so easy in that way, and they make it so. I think too that if you have certain creators that you like and you like to see their stuff and they post pretty often, you miss that familiarity of having them there every day to see whatever else news or whatever tidbit you can get from them. But I don't know. It's hard now to imagine a world where people are like, where social media is more of an option than something that's automatic. You know? I think it'll always be automatic. I just think that maybe new ones will emerge that are not Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or something like that. Because I think people are going to get real sick of those guys. You know, if you aren't already, you're going to get real sick of them, because they are going to be around and they are going to have more muscle, more power, more influence than they ever had. I mean, you know, look at yesterday. Yep. There they were, right in the front row. So, you know, it's weird. We're in weird times, and like, you know, Trump 1.0 was weird and everything, and the way that all went down. And then even like the pandemic itself, watching how the government operated during such a thing. we're supposed to be relying on the government and like during those times, and this is when they're supposed to, especially like, if you grew up in the United States and you're told that, about Uncle Sam and all this stuff, and how like they've got your back, and like they don't. They have their back. And I think that we're going to see more and more and more of that, and we're not going to have too much of a choice but to participate, which is the unfortunate thing. I mean, I would like to think that we could just jump ship, but I think with like things moving so quickly, and now with like the advent of AI coming in, which is just going to infiltrate every single part of our lives, and not that it's even totally necessary in every single part of our lives. It's like there's just so much money behind it now that machine is just going to be hard to resist. So I wish I could be more optimistic in that sense, but I don't know. I just don't. I'm a little misanthropic in that, and a little cynical in that way. Like it's hard to trust that things are going to be all right.
I did want to circle back to how many hours of sleep do you get each night?
Oh, I get at least 8. I've always gotten at least 8. Yeah, I could fall asleep right now, probably. Yeah. No, I could. Yeah, I feel like if there was a contest and they were like, okay, right there, go to sleep. And I think eventually I could definitely do it. The older I get, the more I wish I could stay up later, because of that. But like, I like to get my sleep. So
yeah, same. Yeah, I feel like I'm I don't what is it like percentile? Like what's like when you're like a rare breed of like
you're in the top,
I feel like
2%.
I need like so much more than like what's like normal.
Oh yeah.
And I've always like ever since I was like a teenager, like I feel like I would thrive if I could on like 10 to 12.
Half a day. That's good. I can do a half a day sleep. I like to do like my routine now is sort of to fall asleep, pass out a little too early now, like, and then I'll wake up like somewhere in the middle of the night, and I'll be up for a few hours, whether it's in bed a few hours, or I'll get up and do a few things and try to get back to bed. But then I'm usually just like watching videos or whatever, what I would be doing when I first wake up in the morning. So I like to do like siesta stuff too, or I'll like stop in the afternoon and take like 2 or 3 hours to do other stuff, go to the food shopping or whatever I got to do, and then come back and have a nap.
How long?
Somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes. I enjoy more the afterglow of a nap. So it comes along with having no children. So.
I sometimes a nap's like so great and like refreshing, but sometimes it's like, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? It's like one of the hardest things to like bounce back from.
Yeah, especially if you do it for too long.
Yes.
I find that if I sleep for longer than an hour, that it's not good.
Yeah. They say 20 minutes is what you're supposed to do.
And they say, I don't know how true this is, but they say that Leonardo da Vinci slept 20 minutes every 2 hours. Like he didn't go to bed at night and sleep for 8 hours. He slept throughout the day. Yeah. And he took power naps throughout the day. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if he just tried it and was like, this doesn't work. I don't know.
I know that they say, because I saw something recently, again, I think it was my mom's self-help Instagram, that it was like something about harnessing the part of your brain that is active when you are like falling asleep. Like, when you're falling asleep and it's like you're not dreaming, but you are dreaming. It's like a weird in between.
Yeah, it's like lucid sleep.
Yeah. So it was, and they were talking about some person from history that they were like an inventor. I forget who it was, but it was like that they used to fall asleep, but they had something like rigged to them that whenever they would kind of get into that state, like of actually falling asleep, would wake them up. So then they would be fresh after like just having this part of their brain engaged, and then they can go and like do something based on those ideas.
I could see that. It's a weird lifestyle, though, I think.
I don't.
That all day long.
That's somebody that's very dedicated
like Leonardo
to.
Da Vinci didn't have a wife or anything.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
yeah. So
I guess he could mess around in that way.
Yeah. If that's your thing, then that makes sense.
I could see him. I could definitely see it happening. I don't know how true it was. Because then you have the opposite end where it's Michelangelo, who was, I don't know what his thing was with sleep, but I know that like when he was working on the Sistine Chapel, that there wasn't much time for anything else but that. And he wrote sonnets about what a grueling experience that was. And he talked about sewing the back of his head to his neck because there's whenever we imagine or whenever it's been depicted of Michelangelo, he's like laying down on the scaffold, he's painting, but really he was standing and looking up like this. So, because it was every day for many years of doing that, I could see being like, man, is this really is this the price of greatness?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess it was.
Number 12, what's your favorite feature animation?
Alice in Wonderland.
The last person that I spoke to, Josh Pilch, he works at Augenblick, he said the same thing. It's so funny because I hadn't seen it in so long, and then after we talked, I was like, I should rewatch it.
It's one that I keep going back to.
Yeah.
That's why I really like that one.
Yeah. What is it about it for you? Because I did rewatch it, and I was like, I didn't like it as much as I remember liking it when I was younger.
I think most of those films are sort of like that because I did that with Pinocchio too. And although I liked it again, it was just not, something about it was not the same.
Yeah.
Maybe just watching it as an older person is a little, the magic of it is, Alice in Wonderland, I like it because there's so many characters in it, and she's sort of going through and visiting everybody, So there's more surprises, I think, in something like that, and I think also there's more of a psychedelic touch to a film like that. I guess I gravitate towards those sorts of ideas.
Anthology-ish in a way.
Yeah, ish. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, because you can make a little short just out of that time when she goes and visits Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Just that one. I would say with experimental animation features, there's one called North of Blue by Joanna Priestley, which is great. It's abstract. There's no dialogue. It's basically observations and a sort of portrait of the landscape that surrounded her during a time in Canada, somewhere in the Yukon area. But it's really great. It's pure cinema, pure juxtaposition of abstract images with sound, and it really takes you to a place. It's not just weird noises and abstract images for no reason. That's one I would recommend if people that haven't heard of it.
13, what's your favorite short animation? You did Animation Speakeasy, right?
I did, yeah.
They don't have to be the same thing, but I'm curious also about what you showed, because I think I missed that one, I think.
Yeah. So when I spoke at the Animation Speakeasy, the film I presented was a film called I'm Okay by Lizzie Hobbs. She's a British animator. She is brilliant. And her work is very hands-on. She's very one-on-one with her work. And it's sort of like a performance. She goes in it with sort of a minimal plan. I think she knows what she wants to do, but she sort of getting back to letting the ideas in, she lets the work happen. She reacts. And it's a vice versa. There's a sort of a volley happening between her and the work, and I'm sure that she's searching for things that are surprising her and unexpected. I love that film because it's depicting a historical event, but the history of it is the background, and the legend of it becomes the forefront sort of a thing. And it's because of her elevating it to that kind of a level. I would say also, being that David Lynch just passed away, I'm going to have to mention The Alphabet. Even though it's not fully animated, it's very affecting. You know, I love Joy Street by Susan Pitt. She's unbelievable. Everybody knows Asparagus, but Joy Street is my favorite of hers.
14. This is a question that's more specific to you. Everything else are kind of like evergreen questions.
Yeah.
What's your favorite anthology film?
Creepshow 2. The premise is that the stories are in a comic book, like a graphic novel, and the stories, there's 3 shorts, sort of like the Twilight Zone film, and there's 3 shorts, and with every time we come out of a short, we go like back to which are animated sequences of a kid who's like being bullied and stuff, and then when he goes back to his comics, like the monster from the comic like comes and like, you know, helps protect him, and then we go into the next story. But there's one film in there called The Raft. It's the second film, and it's like classic teenagers in their like cool car and listening to like rock and roll and stuff, and they go over to the lake, and they go into the they swim out to this like wooden raft that's out there, and there's this like blob that's after them, so it's them versus the blob. And but like it's not done in a way where it's like jump scare horror, that kind of a thing. It's got that like, I mean, it was made in the 80s, but it's got that like 70s, like You Are There documentary sort of a feel. Great. Excellent.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
15. What character from an animation do you relate to the most?
Eeyore.
Aw.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Speaking about Alice in Wonderland, the dodo. Do you remember the dodo? So like the dodo is he's like
directing everybody.
Yeah. They're like dancing around he's like standing on a rock, and like he's all dry. He's like, we're almost dry as a bone already, and everybody's getting all wet down there. I don't know. I just feel like not that I would be that selfish, but like I relate to his like, you know, those sorts of jokes, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the dodo from Alice in Wonderland.
16. What characteristic are you most drawn to in other people?
Unselfishness. Altruism. People who do things for others instead of just only for themselves. Getting back to the narcissism learning, you know. But yeah, like people who understand that there's a give and take in the world, and you know people who I mean, I try to be good with this. I'm not always good with this, but I try to listen, look at someone when they're speaking, you know, things like that. I think I'm probably remember those types of people the most.
There's certain people that you meet them and you're just like, they're like so engaged, and you're just like, wow, you know, and it's like, it's not like hard, but it's like a lot of people aren't engaged in conversation like on a deep level, that they're really present and really tuned in and curious, you know? Yeah.
Or there's like a show to it too, where like you're pretending to be more engaged than you actually are. Yeah. And so I guess it's sort of striking that balance and I've been, you know, through my stretching and mindfulness and stuff like that, just trying to be more like here, now, you know, instead of over there in yesterday land or in tomorrow land or whatever in my head, because I usually am there, you know. So I try to be here when I speaking to somebody.
Yes. So. On a podcast or otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
17. What's your most life-defining decision?
My most life-defining decision, I'd say, would be to leave illustration and be an animator. Probably that. When I first started my career, I was part of a production company that did more like live action stuff, and I was partners in that company, and I was with that company for many years, 14 years. And then I left there to go freelance and like make films and stuff like that. So I would say that's sort of up there in life defining, because I think if I didn't leave there, I'd probably still be, and not that would have been bad or anything. Just I would have definitely went down a different road.
18. Do you have any regrets?
Yeah, tons. Ones to name right now.
Whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, getting back to the exiting my partnership sort of a thing. I was there for 14 years. I don't know. I guess it's not really a regret, but like I wish I had done it sooner. That would probably be the only one that I could probably mention right now on here. I think also too, Area 52 was an idea that I had for a very long time before I actually did it. So I think that's part of like the regret thing. Like I wish I'd like done it sooner. I mean, I'm still sort of even living in regret now of like, because I'm working on this feature and they're all shorts, and it's so hard to get them done. And like I keep teetering between fuck the feature, let me just do the shorts. And so I guess there's a little bit of like, I hope I'm not, burning too much time developing a feature film of shorts when I could have just done a short and then put it out, and then another short and put it out. And, I mean, there's not really any regret there, but it's more of like a grass is greener sort of a thing. I guess it could have gone both ways.
Yeah. Questioning.
Yeah.
19. What do you consider your greatest achievement? Probably
having 6 of my films selected for a competition at Annecy.
Nice.
Yeah, that's probably I think that's by far my greatest achievement.
Was it 6 separate films, or were they 6 films that were
6 separate films?
Amazing.
Yeah. So there was 6 of the Area 52 films. Actually, two of the films that were selected were as part of the original 52. One film was really 3 films, and another film was 2 films. So if I was to break it up in that way, it would be more like 9 films were selected. To make that kind of a splash, I would say was probably my greatest achievement.
Yeah, that's a good one. Did you go?
Oh yeah.
Was that how many times have you been?
That was my only time.
Your only time. What did you think?
Oh, great. I mean, it helped a lot too to make that kind of a splash, because then like people already knew who I was before we even got there. So to make connections and to meet folks and to get people excited about what I was doing was, I mean, I can't thank the selection team enough for like giving me that opportunity to do something like that. I mean, my films are not really prize winners in that respect, just those particular ones anyway, just because of maybe for the whole entire project, the degree of difficulty was sort of high, but for film to film, when it's your little, 45-second film versus someone's like 9 or 10 or 15-minute film that they spent 5 years on, like the films just don't it's like the punk rock song against the symphony orchestra or something, and then the press that came along with that then too, I mean, there were a few that I had to seek out, but for the most part, like I was being asked to like be in these, like to be in like Animation magazine and stuff, so it was great. Yeah, that stuff was really, really, really great. And it wouldn't have happened without Annecy's push. Because then, because they're like a Sundance level, they then not necessarily dictate, but they heavily influence how the rest of the season goes. So, then to be selected with multiple films in other prestigious festivals, like there was 10 of my films were selected for Anima Mundi, which I don't think is a festival anymore, or maybe it's sort of in flux. That was in Brazil. To have 3 at Anima Fest Zagreb. I mean, I had 3 films screened at Hiroshima, but one of them was in competition. I didn't get to go to that one, but to just have them travel around and from that push from Annecy was I don't know. I can't really thank them enough for that.
Yeah. What did you think of the town itself?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful little old city, Annecy. It's European AF. Yeah. Everybody's smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee outside and stuff. And, the festival happens in June. So the weather is beautiful. It rains. If you ever go to Annecy, whoever's listening here, always carry an umbrella with you because it could rain out of nowhere.
Yeah.
The lake there is beautiful, and the Alps and all that stuff. And just the whole thing is just great.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to go once at least.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. 20. When did you feel most discouraged about pursuing your creative path?
Often. Often.
Mm-hmm. It's not like one time.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, there are times that were more discouraging than others.
Sure.
I mean, I've had very promising investor opportunities that just back out, sort of things. The creative life is filled with doubt, a lot of self-doubt. And I think most of the battle that comes along with the creative life is creating a language in which you can convince yourself that you're worthy of taking the mantle of whatever this calling that you felt you needed to follow that path. So I would say there's a lot of discouragement in that sense. I mean, I suppose in a more career sense, commercial sense, there's jobs or big jobs that you really feel like you're the best candidate for, and the client also feels like you're the best candidate for it, and then it just sort of goes away. Those sorts of things can be discouraging, especially when you're sort of counting on it, financially. Yeah. I mean, also, Area 52 wasn't all success. I mean, there were a lot of festivals that, every festival I submitted 26 of those films, and there were some festivals that rejected all 26. I mean, it wasn't enough to override the selections that ended up happening, but it definitely is enough to bring you back down to earth and, make you realize that just because it was successful in one place doesn't mean it's going to be successful everywhere. Doesn't mean that your films can be programmed everywhere. Tastes vary from programmers to programmer and stuff. And so I suppose those are discouraging moments. I'm sure there's more down the road that'll be even bigger than those discouragements. So,
Yeah. But you roll with it.
Yep.
21. When were you most embarrassed?
I'd say if I get caught talking to myself or something like that. If I'm really having a conversation with myself, because sometimes I do that. I think that's probably embarrassing. Yeah, other sorts of embarrassments I don't know if I could say on a podcast. But
sure.
Yeah, I'd say that would probably be an embarrassing thing. Mm-hmm. Talking to myself. Sometimes I'm talking to myself on the train too. Not really out loud, but I catch myself sometimes you got to talk it out. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that I think about this more often than I care to, that I feel like I'll be walking down the street, and I don't know if it's because I grew up in a rural place, so I'm not used to really the idea of walking, and
gotcha,
that you might be people might be like seeing you,
I
you
see,
know?
yeah.
So then
I
like
know what you
sometimes
mean,
I'll be
yeah.
walking and I'm just like, whatever. I'm like working. Yeah. Kind of what you're saying. Like I'm working something out in my head and maybe I'm not talking to myself, but I feel like I'm I'm making like facial expressions and like I might be like gesticulating.
Yeah, or like you'll think of something ridiculous, you'll laugh or something like.
And then like I might not be on a street with other people, but where I feel like I'm alone is like there won't be anybody else walking on the street, but then I don't consider that there might be people sitting in like cars.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just
And they're seeing you.
like spazzing
Oh yeah,
out.
that happened to me recently where I was throwing out the garbage in my building and I was talking out loud to myself down there and somebody was like warming up their car and I didn't realize it until after I was on my way back. I'm like, man, that person just saw me like talking with my hands and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'll never stop though.
No, it's natural.
Yeah.
22. I feel like I don't know. And maybe we didn't cover it explicitly, but are you spiritual? I mean, you're interested in astrology and what that means, but I don't know if that's a spirituality per se, but
Definitely spiritual. I'd say I'm more spiritual than, what would you call it when you're into astrology and stuff? Like that's not spiritual?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like that could be a type of.
Yeah. I don't know. Astrology is a little bit of a different thing because, I mean, I suppose spirituality is not really proven either, you know? I mean, I don't know, like in terms of God and religion and stuff, I wouldn't say that I'm very religious, but I'm definitely spiritual. I definitely feel like to be in tune with whatever it is that's out there in that way. I mean, even in an idea catching kind of a way, I feel like you've got to have the radio tunes like to that thing that brings it to you, and you have to receive. I believe in things like flow, you know, like if you're, you know, that's why breathing and that whole thing is important. Again, I don't know if that's spiritual, but I believe that like it's less like God, more like the Force from Star Wars. Like, no, not exactly Star Wars, but like that kind of thing. It's an unexplainable thing and it just is. I suppose God could be that too, but like I feel like there's so much human definition that's like come upon God and what that idea even is and how this one's better than that one and the way I do it is better than you. That's not spirituality. That's something else. I don't know what that is. It's just something else. But yeah, would you consider yourself spiritual?
Yeah.
Do you believe in God?
Mm-hmm.
You do?
Mm-hmm. I mean, like I don't pretend to know what God is.
Yeah.
But I think that growing up, my mom wanted me to have a basis and like, I mean, she, you know, like she was raised Catholic. She didn't want me to be Catholic, which is funny. She was like, but like, you know, the thing that she knew was Christianity. So then like, what's funny is that I was baptized in a Methodist church and my grandpa boycotted because it wasn't a Catholic church.
Interesting. Well, I could see that.
Yeah.
Especially the old timers.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to not be Catholic anymore until I couldn't wait to renounce my Catholicism.
Yeah.
When I got out, like the moment I graduated high school is like I dealt with it until then. And then, I mean, when I was in grammar school, I went to a Catholic grammar school also, and I was like an altar boy and everything. And, you know, you sort of buy into it. But I even started questioning back then. Like I would say somewhere around like 6th or 7th grade, maybe even a little earlier, 5th or 6th grade. One year when Lent came around, I was like, you know, when you just have like that Santa Claus moment, like, all right, no, that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So Lent really didn't make any sense to me. Like it did for a little while, but then like there was one year that was just like, that's bullshit, right? Like that is just not, there's no way.
Just what, like the idea of like that God would require you to give up something.
And that he is keeping tabs.
Yeah.
Keeping score.
Yeah.
He's going to remember if you snuck a piece of chocolate and you said you weren't going to do it within that time frame.
Yeah.
That to me is the type of ridiculous stuff that drove me away from religion.
Gotcha.
I don't knock if people, as long as people aren't like getting sanctimonious about their beliefs, then go and do whatever brings you peace or whatever makes you feel good or whatever it is. I'm not gonna say don't do that, but for me, I didn't see the logic of the superstition of Catholicism.
Like
there's
God-fearing
a lot
thing.
of superstition.
Yeah.
I think there's like, especially with Italians, like, there's a sort of when you're doing rosaries, like, God forbid you skip a bead, or like if you like when you do the sign of the cross, and like if you don't kiss your thumb, all that stuff, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just extra stuff. And, it really just boils down to superstition. It's things that make you feel good. It's like, when you're avoiding stepping on a crack on the sidewalk. It's sort of, and within the same realm, as far as I'm concerned. I do think like Christianity is good. Jesus is good. Like it's good to want to emulate that, and to like, there's no better role model on how to be a good human than I would rather you be hard pressed to find a better one than Jesus, but I think like for me, that's where it ends. And all the other stuff of like, like when we were young, and if you missed church, you had to go to confession.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's so
like,
strict. Yeah.
That stuff is just unhealthy and limiting to people. And I think, like it really preys on people's like need for that. I think that there are other ways to provide people with that spiritual connection and that spiritual satisfaction and comfort without making them feel like they've got to like play all these little games and like get everything right. And like, there's such an air of like, you've got to be perfect or else you're just going to go to hell. And, that's just not, in my humble opinion, the right way to be, teaching children also. It's like how to be. That's really where it all starts, because then you just end up being an adult that's even worse. People become real rigid and like ossified and stuff, and like very like set in their ways. And if you don't do it this way, then like there's just a big problem. And again, letting the flow let it happen. There's very little flow in that.
Yeah.
So.
And I feel like the point, like what the real point of like religion or spirituality is meant to make you feel like good and like protected and like, you know what I mean? Like, and like you're part of something bigger, but it's like when it's strict like that, like it's not bringing you peace, really.
No, it makes you feel even worse. Like you're being watched.
Yeah. Like
you're being observed.
Yeah.
Like an animal in the zoo.
And the only way you're going to be a good person is by feeling behaving, like if you do wrong, something bad's going to happen to you. And it's like, shouldn't you want to just be good anyway? But also like being good is a subjective term,
Depending on who you ask, I guess. Well, just, I don't want to really harp on Jesus stuff, but like, the idea of treating people the way you want to be treated. Like, you don't have to be a Christian to do that.
Understand that. Yeah.
So it's that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's just another thing, another means of control. I was just thinking about like Elon Musk yesterday with his little gesture there, and to think that was rooted in originally in Christianity also, and how it drives people to feel that we're better,
righteous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I suppose there's two sides to it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of great things that come out of Christianity too, and all other religions too. So,
yeah, for sure. 23. Who should I interview next?
Are you open to international artists, or do they have to come in and be in New York?
I'm open to the suggestion because I definitely want to interview all kinds of animators from all over the place. I'm just trying for as long as I can to hold on to the in-person aspect of what I'm doing. But, as much as like I can to meet people where they are if I can, kind of thing. So yeah, whoever you think.
I would say if it's like New York, people who are in New York, Amanda Bonaiuto.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Amanda Bonaiuto?
I know of her, but I've not met her.
So you should probably interview her.
Yeah.
She's probably a lot of good things to say. Internationally, there's a filmmaker who is Italian that works in Denmark. Her name is Martina Scarpelli. Mm-hmm. She would be really good to interview. And also another friend of mine who is in Scotland, his name is Will Anderson, does a lot of great work. And he's a sort of a respected filmmaker out there too. So he'd be really good.
All right, last question. What do you want to plug?
What do I want to plug?
Yeah.
Well, I should probably at this point plug my Instagram, my Films for No One Instagram. It's at Films for No One. It hasn't been too active as of late, but that's where you would be able to go to catch up on whatever is going on with the project. Yeah, and probably my personal website, which is johnmorena.com, JOHNMORENA.com.
www.
Yeah, I have my films are on there, and then also like my commercial work is on there too. So, which is vastly different than my experimental films. Do a lot of TV stuff. Well, that's it.
All right.
I don't really have that much to plug other than that. I'm just keep plugging along on this movie, and I guess if people are actually going to go to it, I'll do more Instagram stuff, but that's really where you can go to learn more about what it is, what Films for No One is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Thanks for joining me today on The Animator's Friend. This podcast is recorded and edited by India Lombardi-Bello and produced in part with facilities provided by SVA MFA Computer Arts in New York City. Designed by Sawyer Rippon. I'd like to give special thanks to LaBracio for recommending I talk to John Morena. I want to thank Jose Vargas, Michael Dondero, and Nikolas Hagen.